Okay, I guess I'll just start. Just to make sure you're all in the right room, I'm going to be talking about how user experience or UX helps your business stand out in today's competitive market. Okay, seems like no one's really budging. So, um, so a lot of you may know me and a lot of you may not. So I'll just give a really quick intro of myself. Okay, so hi, I'm Rose. I'm a UX UI designer at NFQ based in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm a designer that has a background in psychology and also worked a few years in customer service before I jumped into this career. I also worked in another global digital agency prior to NFQ called Valtech. It's based in um, Toronto, Canada. So yeah, so I've been with NFQ for 3 years now. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about me, we'll just get into the topic. So between you and me, or us, we as consumers have endless of choices today. So this is just an example for the marketing tech landscape, but as you can see, or not see, uh, there's different sectors, and within those sectors, there's so many applications that are just competing each other in that space. But despite of that, there's a few that would stand out in their respective space. And why is that? So yeah, one thing, it could be that they were at the right place at the right time. It could be the pricing. It could be, yeah, they were just simply solving the problem that for that space. But I would say also a lot of these top tech products, what they really excel at and what they really invest in a lot is the user experience. So, okay, I can't see everyone, but who here has worked with a UX UI designer before? Ah, okay, cool. All right, well, a lot of what people think of what we do, and also thinking about UX, is it compromises some sort of these elements. Yeah, we think about the visual design, making something pretty, interaction design, information architecture, navigation, all of that. But what if I told you that what a lot of us understand of UX today isn't actually the original definition concept of it? So what am I talking about? So what a lot of us understand and do in the tech industry today in UX, it's actually a much more narrow scope. So the person that actually coined the term user experience is a man named Don Norman. He is a co-founder of the Nielsen Norman Group, which is one of the world's leading UX research websites. So definitely check it out. But Don Norman was actually the first person to hold the title of a UX architect in the world, or just have UX in his role, while he was working at Apple between 1993 to 1997. And he actually defines user experience as user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So it's actually a much more holistic point of view about user experience. So just to illustrate just quickly, a lot of what we do for UX, or a lot of people understand these, is actually at the single interaction level. So what I described, like yes, like the visual design, information architecture, user psychology, but that's just one very small scope of UX work. While as a customer or as a user, there's really a lot more of touch points of with an organization. So a single interaction level, an example would be, yes, just the user interacting with the digital interface of your company. So like filing an insurance claim on an insurance website, that's the single interaction level. A journey level is another level experience. So this is thinking about the end-to-end user's journey to accomplish a goal. So if I'm filing a claim on an insurance website, then my journey was somehow start with, okay, I'll probably start to, wait, sorry. I'll probably start to maybe look at the insurance policy packet, and then maybe I'll call customer service, and then maybe I will file a claim on the website, and then all the way until I get a confirmation email and get a reimbursement check. So that's a whole journey level. And then the biggest scope of UX would be the relationship level. So that's thinking about, yes, the branding, how do you maintain a relationship and connect with your customers throughout their lifetime span. But as we're in tech, I'll be, okay, mainly focusing on the interaction level or the single interaction level. But I don't want to neglect other parts or levels of experience that are just also equally important to think about. So what makes a good user experience at the interface level? So I'm going to give you 4 characteristics through a case study. And these 4 characteristics really, to me, it really encapsulates what I do day to day as a designer as well. And this is, I am borrowing from Google, so yeah, let's get started with that. So who remembers the old MySpace? I don't know if people, yeah, or some people don't really know. Okay, so MySpace was actually one of the biggest social media platform back in the early 2000s. And they let you actually customize your profile page. And they were quite big, I think more in the Western hemisphere. So, but of course, they eventually died out. Why? Because a lot of you know Facebook today, right? So I'm going to be talking about the 2009 version because it's quite debatable about the current design of the user experience for Facebook. But this was a really big turning point for Facebook to have a lot of active users. So, and why? It's because of the interface that they rolled out in 2009. So what makes a good user experience and what made Facebook really stand out in that time period? So the first characteristic was that it was way more usable than MySpace, simply because it was just a much simpler layout. So that's self-given. Another characteristic would be that the design or the product itself was equitable. So what do I mean by equitable? Equitable in this sense is that your design caters to all diverse backgrounds and abilities. So, well, for Facebook, one of the examples would be that you allow users to select on a preferred language. But another example for your product could be that, are you checking your colors on your interface enough for people who are experiencing color blindness? So if you are able to cater to people who don't have color blindness, you should also enable your users and let them have a fair, equal opportunity to use your product as well. Yeah. The third characteristic is also of what makes a good user experience is that it's enjoyable. So I think if you remember Facebook at that time, they were one of the front pioneers on introducing the like button, the wall, the comments, and yes, the mutual friends too. So these are the features that really let users at that time experience more joy in connecting with others with these features. And lastly, what makes a good user experience is that the product is useful. So what do I mean by useful? It means that this is the design of the product that is solving actual users' problem. So for Facebook, they came out with many features, right, to be able to let people to connect with each other more in real time. So again, what are the 4 characteristics of a good user experience in a nutshell? So one, that your product is usable, your product is equitable, your product is enjoyable, and it's useful. So how can you start to think more about users' experience in your product today? I really want to note and emphasize that everybody in this room, no matter what your role is, you all have some influence in shaping and molding your product. So it's everybody's responsibility, and it's a collaborative effort to think about users' experience. So you can apply these 4 characteristics. In terms of the equitable and enjoyable part, I won't go too much details on it, just because it really depends on your product and your users to make it enjoyable and also make sure that everybody has a fair opportunity to use your product. But I will go a little bit more detail on the usability part and the usefulness. So how can your team start to incorporate and think a little bit more about user experience? So first is assessing the usefulness. So I really like this infographic from the Nielsen Norman Group. I really do want to emphasize, and I have to emphasize sometimes in my projects too, you're not the user. So a key question that you could ask yourself and your teammates when you're working on a feature is this an assumption that I have, or is there concrete evidence to support that this is a real problem? When I say concrete evidence, you should be able to have some sort of quantitative or qualitative research to back up that what you are working on is something that many people are facing. So I want to tell a little bit about Airbnb's story. I think there's some people that talked about Airbnb a lot today. But during the pandemic, like many companies, they start to lose a lot of their business, right? And Airbnb, of course, was not. It was quite inevitable. So there was a lot of articles at that time that this is the end of Airbnb. Their revenues are falling, and Brian Chesky, the CEO and co-founder of Airbnb, even wasn't really sure if the business was going to make it because they were losing about 80% of their business in the first few weeks after COVID hit in the United States. So, and also a fun fact, Brian Chesky is the only CEO, so Airbnb is already listed in the Fortune 500 companies. He's the only CEO there that has a design background too. So what did he do? What did he do to try to save his company? One thing he really emphasized was that he went back to the basics. He said that he started to lean into listening to his users more. So I'll read this for you. So one of the news sources, he says that his team read 15K social media posts, analyzed tens of millions of customers' complaints, and held conversational workshops for thousands of guests and hosts. So this helped him and his team to prioritize the problems that they need to solve. And basically, Brian Chesky would say in his interviews that if people don't love your core services, you don't really have the right to throw in any more or expand your features. So he really went back to caring about the hosts, the guests, and all the services and experience related to that. So what happened at the end? So before Airbnb was actually just a break-even company, but just in 2022, so after he did all of this, Airbnb became a $4 billion free cash flow company. Just because he started to go back to the basics and actually save his company. So I hope that somehow inspires you to remember that you're not the user and make sure that you're really solving the core problems and really engage with your users. So how can your team start to also assess usability? So there's a lot of methods. But I think that one of the key questions that you can ask yourself and your team is that simply, is there anywhere that my users have friction or obstacles to do what they need to do? So you can think of a particular feature you're working on. You can draw a flow, just like an example there. And just really see, okay, is there anywhere that I'm making my users click through 3 times? Is there a navigation that's just not very clear? So that's one key question. But I'd also like to show you another concept that you could also use. So this concept is called the signal-to-noise ratio. So what do I mean by signal-to-noise ratio? Signal means that it's you're signaling the relevant features or information that your users need. The noise is like the irrelevant stuff, but you want to make sure amongst your team and with your users that on your product, your signal to noise ratio is high. So let's take an example for Amazon. So what's the highest signal on this page? You don't have to answer me, but it's okay. But it's the search bar because people come into Amazon because they're looking for stuff to buy, right? So you got to make it really easy and really signal like, hey, here's the search bar, and you start looking for your product right away. And then, okay, maybe the today deals and the other promotional stuff is there, but it's not as noisy, right? So you want to make it really easy for users to get to what they need to do. I also want to take the opportunity to talk about the cultural context for this. So you have to be really careful. So Shopee, if you don't know Shopee, it's pretty much the Amazon's equivalent in Southeast Asia. But as you can see, the signal to noise ratio here is quite different. So yes, the search bar is still signaling quite high, but at the same time, the promotion ads is a lot louder as well compared to the Amazon page, right? So I think amongst our Southeast Asian people, we love discounts and promotions, so this is really important for us to see and signal to us too. So yeah, that's what I mean by also taking account of cultural context and the users that you're serving. So how do you measure success of user experience? Because a lot of people tell me that UX is very subjective in certain ways. But there are ways to measure that what you're implementing and putting out there, your users are loving it or having a really good experience with it. So there's a lot of metrics, and again, it will really vary on your product. But I like to give a really simple framework, again, from Google. So thank you, Google, for giving a more summarized way to think about it. It's called the HEART framework. So HEART stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task completion. Now, I put an asterisk between engagement because a lot of you may work on enterprise solutions, and engagement metric might not be the best just because they have to use it for their day-to-day job. So that might not be the best metric, and even adoption as well. I put an asterisk there because it's not really all the credit to UX for adoption for this. It's also like sales and marketing as well that has a role in measuring adoption. But you can try to measure success in one of these metrics, really depending on your project. So what are the takeaways for this talk? So one is that again, thinking about user experience is a collaboration from all roles in the team because you all have some sort of influence to shape and form the product. So it's not just on the designers or UX specialists, but we work collaboratively with you to do this. So again, you can think about it in your projects, assessing like, is this a good user experience for my product is my product usable? Is my product equitable? Is it enjoyable? And is it useful? And don't forget to measure the user experience with the HEART framework too. And another takeaway I wanted to point out is that just because what I talked about today is just one very small scope of UX work. So if you can, that's why it's a team effort to think about the user experience beyond the digital touch point. Every single experience on each level is just as crucial because when one breaks, you will have customers leave for sure at some point. I think Apple is a very good example for this, just because, okay, their products are really great, right? It's really user-friendly and all of that. But what else is also great is that they carry the same messaging of quality all throughout the channel. So when you walk into an Apple store, it's the same messaging there. When you interact with their customer service, same messaging there. So if you think about it, if the product is great but your customer service is not, you may start to lose some retention in that case, and vice versa. So finally, just want to say that every investment into UX will give you, every dollar invest in UX will give you $100 back more. But yeah, thank you. And if you want to connect with me, it's on LinkedIn QR code. Yeah.
All right, is there any question that you, okay.
Would you be able to go back to the Amazon slide?
Sure. Yeah.
So with and mind you, I don't have UX experience. From my perspective, it felt like these, and obviously this is field, so it's not like data driven, but it felt like the search bar was less of a signal ratio than the free shipping. Whereas on the Lazada, or the next one, the Shopee one, this one seemed like the search bar was. So my question is, how would you quantify that signal to noise ratio? Would you use heat maps, or like what tools would you use to actually get data rather than like I feel this is where the signal is?
Good. Thanks for your question. So, yeah, a lot of people just be like, "Oh, I feel like this would be a great solution, right?" But how do you quantify that? Yes, one is you could use heat map, but another that I think a lot of UX UI practitioners really recommend is that you really should test with your users. Depending on the size of your project, if you don't have that much user base, then getting at least 5 people to come in, do some rapid user testing, usability testing in that way, and see if they are able to complete a task that your product intends to. So if you go back to the HARD framework, I think one of the metrics you could quantify with is the task completion.
Sorry, one more question. Is there a way to do this without like taking their time and getting on like a call? Is there methods to get that task completion data without actively engaging?
Yeah. So I've only used to see this on Microsoft Clarity. It's another version of Hotjar, but they have live recording sessions and recorded sessions, and you can filter out like, okay, how are users going through this certain task or this feature, and yeah. Yeah, so that's why I still recommend to have some moderated usability testing in that sense. So it's always like, okay, you should do both. I still think you should also still do both as well. So you have the moderated, so you're like literally looking at what they're doing, and also compare it to the unmoderated, so like looking at the live recordings. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah.
Other question over there. Yes.
Hello, Rose. So
Hello.
everyone, excuse my voice. I have a very simple question for you. What do you think is the UX maturity level in Thailand's companies?
UX metric.
Maturity level.
Oh, maturity. I don't think I would have a very good answer to this. I think it's not as mature for sure than like the United States or perhaps more in Europe. Yeah, I don't think it's as high as compared to the West yet.
But from your own experience working with clients, how do you feel about it?
Well, like Thai clients?
Yeah.
I've only worked with one Thai client so far. So, but for them, I think they're a little bit different because they have some Western influence too. So they really understand that having a simple lean UX is like it's good enough for them. So yeah, I can't really say how mature UX is in Thailand, but I would say it's not as high or strong as the West still.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question in the back? Yes.
Hey, hi Rose. I'm MC from a front-end developer from Samarkand team. So thank you for your sharing, and I really love it. So based on your experience and understanding in these sections, so what would be the top advice, your top advice for prioritizing the UX investment? Just to sorry,
It's okay.
to maximize the impact for just startup and small business.
Yeah.
With the limited budgets and resources. Yeah.
Yeah, I face this all the time, I would say. I think usually you would have to, that's why I didn't share this part, but so for the most recent project I'm working in, it's really important to at least dedicate some time in the beginning to do some discovery workshops or UX research as well, to really identify like what are people really struggling with. And when you have that concrete evidence, then it really helps you to communicate with your stakeholders and everybody in the team. Like, okay, people are really suffering, not suffering, but they're really experiencing a lot of problems with this, and it's really impacting our business and our product in a lot of ways. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
More question for Rose.
Or you can talk to me
Yes,
after.
we have two-
Oh, okay.
Here and over there.
Hello. Thank you for the talk. I really enjoyed it. My question is, what does it take to be a good UX designer in the age of AI? Like, why not just opt for AI instead of having a very good UX designer?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? Like,
Sorry. So what does it take to be a good UX designer in the age of AI? So like, why
Right.
not opt for AI instead of like having a really good UX designer?
Yes, this is also a hot topic in the design community. I think one thing that AI can't really replace too much yet is definitely the human empathy and the connection that you have with people. And yeah, I would say it's the empathizing part. I think AI doesn't have that capability yet. So it takes a lot to balance like the users and the business and the business goals, and also considering technical feasibility as well. So as a UX UI designer, we really do take into account all of those three sectors. So the users, the business goals, and the technical feasibility. I hope that answers it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, there's more?
I think
Okay.
there is one question on the right.
I can't really see, so.
Okay, thank you for your sharing. So I have a question. If we have a new feature which is never displayed on any pages before, so how we can know what is the best UX to apply for this feature? Yeah.
So meaning it's not like announce, like not, so it's not very prominent, right?
Yes.
So you released it and it's not very prominent. I think the most obvious way is make sure that somehow you really announce this new feature. So as you can, like a lot of products like they either email, where you email to your user base, hey, it's a new feature, check it out, or even on when they come back to your product, you can even try to nudge them a little bit, but not annoy them too much that there's a new feature. So I would say you would have to work with like the marketing team for this as well. I hope that answers somewhat.
All right. Thank you for your question. Thank you very much, Rose, for the presentation. It was awesome. Thank you.